Hi Sumit, here is the crop jacket with notched collar that I made. Yeah, so in this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how I came about this. We'll be starting with the pattern drafting to the cutting of the fabric and the sewing as well. So if this looks like what you like to learn, then watch to the very end. My name is Veronica Adams Easy. Welcome to Vera Adams YouTube channel. So right here is the pattern paper. So I'll be having two starting lines. So this very first one I marked 4.5 inches away from the first starting line. So on this second starting line is where we'll be marking our shoulder and be taking our measurement from. So I'll be marking 4 inches away from the center of the pattern paper, from the top to the bottom. The length I'll be using for this crop jacket is 18 inches. So right here on the pattern paper, I have 18.5 inches, which is fine. So right at the point where I have 18.5 inches, I'm going to go ahead to mark 4 inches away from the center, just as I did at the top. And I'm going to make a straight line out of this. Moving to the top of the paper, I'm going to mark half of the shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches. And right from that point, I'm going to mark shoulder to bust, which is 9 inches. And I'm going to take 1.5 inches above the bust line, which will serve as the chest line. Right on the chest line, I'm also going to go ahead to mark 7.5 inches, which is the half of the shoulder measurement, and I'm connected to meet the shoulder line. Right on that line, I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and that will serve as the shoulder slope. I'm taking 3 inches as the neck width, and I'll connect the two together as you're seeing me doing here. Once this is done, I'll go ahead to take a quarter of the bust measurement on the chest line, and I'll also divide what I have here on the armhole line into two, go in by half of an inch, and connect these points together using the curve rule. For the neck depth, I'm going to be using 3 inches, so I'll go ahead to connect the neck depth to the neck width. Decide where you want the lapel to stop. For me, I want it to stop on the chest line because I don't want it to be deep. I don't want it to be revealing. So I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 inch at the extension, just as you're seeing me doing here. I'll also go down to the bottom of the paper and mark 1 inch and connect it together. Note that this extension will serve as the space for the buttonhole and buttons. So I've gone ahead to also extend from that point upward in a V-shaped manner. In order to get the accurate neck extension for the collar, you need the back piece. I've gone ahead to draft the back piece off camera because I don't want this video to be very long. For the back piece, the neck width is also 3 inches, but the neck depth is 1 inch. So measuring along the neckline, I have 3.5 inches. Please watch as I am measuring. So I have exactly 3.5 inches, and I'll go ahead to mark that on the front pattern paper. So right at the point where you have the shoulder line, you take 3.5 inches upward. Yes, but because we want the collar to sit in well, we're going in by half of an inch away from that point. Then I'll go ahead to connect this to the initial line. On this line, we'll go ahead to mark 3.5 inches as well. The next thing is to determine how wide you want the lapel. For me, I don't want something big, so I'm going to be marking 2 inches right at the neck depth, and I'm going to be connecting it as so. So right from that point, we'll be connecting it to the chest line extension. So you can either do it straight or curve it. You can actually play around with this. So now we can move on to the collar. For the collar width, we're going to be working with 3 inches. Please note how I placed the tape. It is not straight. I did it in a slanted manner, so follow that same shape. Right here, I'll be dividing this 2 inches extension into two. That is 1 inch on both sides. So once I'm done with this, I'll go ahead and mark 1.5 inches away from that point in a slanted manner. I eventually didn't use 1.5 inches. I reduced it to 1 inch. Right from this point, I'm going to go ahead to connect it upwards with this slightly curved part of this ruler to meet the collar width. Now we can move ahead to take the rest of the measurements. So since this crop jacket is going to be a free one, there will be no shaping on the side. So what I have on the chest line is what I'm going to be taking on the waistline here. The next thing to do is to start cutting, and please be very careful when you're cutting the collar region, because once you make a mistake, that's just the end. So please watch carefully as I'll be cutting this. So I'm going to stop talking for a while so that you can totally get it without any distraction. At this point, we're done cutting, and as you can see that our pattern is taking shape already. So right here, we'll move ahead to cut all this out on the fabric. So I'm using a crepe fabric. I'm sorry I didn't show you the fabric before cutting out. I had to just try to cut this video short. I've gone ahead to add 1 inch seam allowance on the side, and on the bottom I left about 3 inches. I'll tell you why as we go on in this tutorial. So I've also gone ahead to cut the lining for the front piece because we'll be needing a lining, but I used the fabric as the lining. You will get to know why as we proceed in this tutorial. Here is the back piece, and for this I'm not going to be using the fabric as the lining. Right here is the collar, and I've gone ahead to add half an inch all around at the top, at the bottom, and at the side as well. The only part excluded is the center front, and that's because that part is on fold. So please indicate the up and the down on your collar so that you don't get it mixed up. You don't use the down part as the up part. So I've gone ahead to cut the lining for the back piece, but my lining was not enough, so the lining didn't come as one piece, it came as 2 pieces. So I'll go ahead to join it with half of an inch at the center. Just like the front lining, the back lining is also shorter than the fabric. So I'll go ahead to pin the center back lining down. Remember that I said it came in 2 pieces because my lining was small. So if you have enough lining, just cut it as 1 piece, just like the fabric. Once I'm done pinning, I'm going to move over to the sewing machine and sew it down. Then I'll go ahead to bring in the lining part for the front. So this is the lining piece. You can see that I indicated L. So I have both sides because you know the front piece has the left side and the right side. So I'm going to be attaching 1 piece of the front lining to the back lining at the shoulder line, and I'm going to be stitching down with half of an inch. I'm also going to be doing that to the other piece as well, just as I'm indicating right here. So right here is the main fabric, and of course we have 2 sides, the left and the right. I'm going to go ahead to bring in the back piece, and I'm going to join at the shoulder line. So I'm using the pin right here. I'll take it to the machine to sew, just as I did for the lining. So in this tutorial we'll be having an inseam finishing, so we'll be joining the lining piece separately from the fabric pieces. So I've joined with the sewing machine, and this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead to bring in the lining piece as well. So here's the lining piece. Remember that we joined at the center back and also on the shoulder line. So here is the collar. I cut out both pieces of the collar using the fabric, and there's a reason for this as well, so I'll show us as we go on. So don't forget that we labeled the up and the down parts on the paper, so I'm going to go ahead to repeat that right also on the fabric piece so that we do not make a mistake. So I'm going to bring in back the pattern paper because while we were drafting I forgot to notch the part where the collar would stop. So this is what I'm trying to achieve here. So this is a point where the collar stops, and I'm going ahead to notch it right on the fabric piece. Placing these 2 notches together for the left and the right side of the front piece, I'm going to go ahead to hold it together so that I can get the center back, and I've gone ahead to notch that part as well. I'll also go ahead to notch the center of the collar. So once this is done, I'll place the notch center of the collar with the center back piece. I made sure that the part of the collar that I was pinning to this fabric is the down part. I'll continue to pin these pieces together till I get to the part where the collar ends. This notch on the fabric that we see right here indicates where the collar would end. So you see why it is really important to notch that area. I'll also move ahead to the other side. You know that we started from the midpoint, so this is me pinning the other side as well. So I'll go ahead to repeat what I did on the fabric piece right here on the lining piece as well, because whatever you do for the fabric, you have to do for the lining. So here is the fabric piece, and this is what we have after sewing it down. So you can see the stitches, and here is the lining piece. I've also gone ahead to sew it down. I'll go ahead to notch the areas which we stitched. This is to allow the neck region relax well. I'll do same on the lining piece. So moving on, we're going to place the lining on the fabric. Right side facing right side around the corner area. Remember that we have the notch part, so we're going to be starting from the center of both collars in this manner. So from one side of both collars, I'm pinning down, and I'll go also to the other side as well and pin down. Once we are done pinning down around the collar, we're going to move to the side. That's the center front of both sides together, just as you're seeing me doing here, till we get to the bottom. But don't forget that the lining piece is shorter, so it's fine. Just stop right there. I'll move on to the other side as well and pin down till I get to that part where the lining is shorter than the fabric. And I'll stop right there. But before we join these sides together, we're supposed to join by the side. That means you're joining the side on the fabric together. Depending on the allowance that you left, you join on the sides. That means joining one piece of the back with one piece of the front, then the other piece of the back with the other piece of the front. So we're joining fabric to fabric, then we'll also move ahead to join lining to lining. I hope you understand. Let me say this, that adding interfacing to your fabric is optional. I think I didn't make mention of this at the beginning. I decided to put interfacing around the collar area and around the center front area for both the lining and the fabric for the front. So I've gone ahead to sew the sides down, and here it is. I'm trimming it off because I don't want bulkiness inside. Now I can move on to continue with what we were doing before joining the sides. So I'm going to go ahead to remove the last pin at this edge so that I can draw the lining part to meet the main fabric so that they become equal. Please watch as I'm going to do this. Once they become equal, I'll go ahead to start pinning it down at that bottom part. I'll pin from that point till the other side. Once we get to the other side, we'll go ahead and remove the pin as well, just as we did for the first one. And then we'll pull the lining to meet the fabric to be equal. Then we can pin down as well. So once this is done, we'll go ahead and run a stitch across the bottom part. So now that the bottom part have been stitched all through, we're now going to go to the side. Here is the bottom part. So remember that we made the lining shorter than the fabric. This is the reason, because we're going to use the lining to tone it all in so that at the end of sewing you don't need to start hemming. So that was the essence. Depending on the inches that you reduced the lining by, that is what you will have as the excess right here. So I'm going ahead to start pinning down, and this is the center front area, and from this point we can now move down to the collar region. So from here to the collar region through to the other side of the center front. Once I'm done pinning down, I'll move to the sewing machine to sew it down with 1/2 inch all around. So now I'm done sewing, and this is what it looks like all through. I'll go ahead and turn it to the right side so that we can see what we have there. So here's the wrong side. You can see how everything is laying properly even without ironing. So this was what we're trying to achieve by making the lining shorter so that the fabric will come up. I'll go ahead to take this to the ironing table to iron so that everything lays nice and flat. So yeah, I've gone ahead to iron it, and this is what it looks like. The essence of using the fabric for the lining of the center front is such that when you fold the lapel region over just in this manner, it gives you the exact fabric and not the lining. Imagine if it was the lining that we used here, it is the lining that will be showing on the outside. Except you intend to use a different fabric for the center front for the lining, do not use the regular lining for this. So right here, you can go ahead to put in your preferred sleeve. So I actually prepared the cover buttons for this crop jacket, but it wasn't ready at the time I was making this video. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, click on the like button. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comment section. If you are yet to subscribe to this YouTube channel, do well to subscribe for more interesting tutorials. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.